Hi, I'm VerBurg, and the title of our topic is Old but Beautiful. I'm really looking forward to spending the next few minutes with you to discuss what I would call one of the most important times in a person's lifetime. Really, as I look at the climactic years of life, I see it as a climax of everything. And when I think of a climax, I don't think of things falling apart. I think of it as a time when everything you've ever worked for or lived for is coming together. Put it very simply, life is something like walking through the woods and getting out of the woods. And as we go through life, we often see no more than perhaps just a tree at a time, a bush at a time. We deal with life in terms of a problem at a time, a situation at a time. And many times, I know from experience and having heard so many testify, we keep wondering, how is it all going to turn out? Well, the interesting thing is that today we are worrying about a tomorrow which we know nothing of. Today we are doing some things which are going to affect and help our tomorrow and make it more beautiful. And yet there's something about it we tend to worry about the future. We tend to look back with some regrets on the past, and each of us has difficulty living the moment or the day. The result of this process is that as we go through life, we just kind of keep wondering how things are going to turn out. Well, it's a beautiful thing now when at last we reach some of the climactic years of life and we can look back and see that many of the things that we worried about never came to pass. Many things that we feared weren't so impossible after all. And some of the things we thought we really had failed in, we succeeded after all. And some of the places where we thought we were really going to succeed and actually failed were things that just weren't important anyway. I hope this puts a smile on your face, because to me life is very, very interesting, to say the least. You notice in the topic I left the word old in there. I said old but beautiful. I'd like to tell you why I left that word in there. You see, I have the better part of my life behind me, and when I look ahead, I'm looking at the point of getting old. The reason I like to use this word old is because if there's such a thing as being young, it seems to me there's such a thing as being old. Now, I don't think it's a disgrace to be young, and I don't think it's so ugly to be old. To me, to be young, to be in the middle age or span of life, or to be old, can all be beautiful. It just depends what we are doing and what our attitude is while we are doing it. You have a little seminar booklet, and to make it simpler and more interesting, more beneficial, is what I'm asking you to do is to take that little booklet and page along with me. Now, I'm going to make sure that we go by the page so you never get lost, so we stay together. And let me say this, don't linger behind and don't run ahead. We're talking about living life a day at a time. Well, as we go through this little seminar booklet, let's see if we can do it a page at a time. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to learn things. We're going to see things we haven't seen before. We're going to learn how to do some things that can put happiness into life that you probably weren't aware of before. And you're going to hear a lot of things probably that you're already doing, and you just didn't know that they were really the right things to do, and now you're going to find out they were right after all, and the thing to do is do a lot more of them. Before I show you the simple little formula for happiness and to put meaningfulness in the advanced years of life, I would like to first of all single out a number of things I think that we should understand concerning the mature years of life, or as I indicated in the beginning, I would like to think of them the older years of life because, like I said, I was young and I'm going to be old, but old is still beautiful. Turn with me to page 1. Now we have a few lines on each page, and I'm going to read through these and make a few comments, and then when we are all finished, you can discuss these things with other people, and out of the discussion, you will find out that you will be able to enrich another person's life, and they will be able to enrich you too. On page 1, we read this: that we live in a universe controlled by many life-giving principles. Now, one of the things that I really like in that statement is the word controlled. My, how important it is that somebody is in control of this world. We often look to the capitals of the countries, and we become feverishly concerned as to whom the man is that's in charge and what he's doing and what his policies are and what his attitudes are. Most people, including Christians, are more concerned about real estate taxes, the cost of utilities, the rate of inflation, things of this nature, more than they are in God, who is in control of everything. You see, the most beautiful part of all the principles that govern our life is to see the one who gave them, namely God. Now, somehow or another, I get somewhat of a feeling that people generally have the impression that the Bible is written basically for middle-aged people, people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Somehow or another, the attitude is children, well, you can bring them in, but it's really not talking to them. That's the young side of life, and the old side of life is that the Bible kind of runs out of words for us too and really doesn't address itself and have much to say about our everyday life. This certainly isn't right. Let me give you an example of it. As I was pondering this, it came to me that John 10:10, often quoted by high school students, college students, parents, adults, which simply says, and it quotes the words of Jesus, "I have come that you might have life and have it abundantly." I don't believe I have ever heard that applied to someone who is advanced in years and has reached the climactic stage of life. I wonder if you can believe right now that that verse in the Bible belongs to you. What is abundant living? Well, first of all, as I look at abundant living, it doesn't guarantee me a large bank account. It doesn't promise me I will have enough money to make it all the way through life. It doesn't guarantee me that I'm not going to be sick. It doesn't promise me either that I'm not going to break some bones. But one thing it does promise me is peace on the inside. There are many people today who are very wealthy, and there are many people who have healthy bodies, but they live torn apart on the inside for lack of peace. And many of these are Christians running after the wind just as hard as Gentiles, unbelievers. Now stop to think. John 10:10. Jesus said, "I have come that you might have life, that you might know it in an abundant, quantitative, not necessarily qualitative, but in a quantitative way, which means even though you may be sick, even though you may not be wealthy, there is a quality to your life that outshines everybody around you." So my point is simply this: don't cling to riches, but cling to God. Don't put your hope in politicians, but put it in Jesus. He never changes. His faithfulness will never cease. Well, the next page says that in each of these, simplicity is the secret of success. Let me tell you what I mean by simplicity. There's a passage of Scripture in the Bible that you should keep reading. In fact, you should read it at least every week. It's the last half of the 6th chapter of Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus promises us this, that if we keep the interest of His kingdom and Himself before us first, inasmuch as He feeds the birds, He will feed us. Inasmuch as He continues to make the flowers bloom with beauty, He will provide us with clothing and warmth. In other words, the basic essentials of life, food, clothing, and shelter. What so many people often worry about, Jesus said, if you will put me first and keep me there, when I go out in the morning to feed the birds, I will first see you have food. And when I go out at night to see that the birds have shelter, I will first see that you have a place to lie down and rest. Isn't that beautiful? Our society has been busy trying to take God out of it, and the results are rather sad and tragic. Man seems to insist on doing life the hard way. The result of it is people are uneasy, they're frightened, they're worried, they're wondering where it's all going to end up. God hasn't changed. God is still the same. And what a wonderful thing it is that I can grow to be 100. And in spite of inflation, the threat of war, famine, pestilence, shortage of water, whatever our news media yells at me, I know this. When I'm 100 years old, God will be there, and God will care for me just like He's taking care of me now. We'll move on. On page 3, I would like for you to note that this booklet is designed to help and encourage you. For one thing, it's intended for everyone who is old, but I would like to emphasize that this is also intended for everyone who ever intends to get old. Do you ever stop to think that by the time you became 20, 25 years old, you had spent between 15 and 20 years of your life dreaming about being an adult? And very few people begin at 40 to dream and to plan through the 40s and the 50s what an exciting time they're going to have in the 60s, 70s, and 80s should they live that long. It finally takes them by surprise and regret. We have to give up everything we've ever done and ever liked, and now we have to get old. That's really not the case. There were things and purpose in life, as we shall see, that belong to childhood, and things that belong to the family years when you were rearing children, busy in your work, whatever it was, and there are some very important things for you to do in the sunset years of life. And on page 4 it says, the purpose of this booklet is to show you some of the basic ingredients of old age that can make the final years of life beautiful and rewarding. Now, what I would like to do in the next few pages is just touch on and make you aware of a few of the problem areas that arise. And the reason I like to do this is not so that we become problem-oriented and spend our time just in problems and so forth in life, but I would like to do this in order to give us a picture so that we can kind of lay our finger on some of the things that maybe have us snagged. In case you are experiencing defeat in some areas of your life, this is going to help you put your finger on it, what it is, where it is, and what it's going to take to get yourself rolling. Now on page 5, I say to you, here are some of the problem areas. And right across the page, on page 6, I give you 5 of these. Now, I will tell you how I came about selecting these 5. I have spent many years in the counseling room, counseling with people of all ages, and many of them well along in the years of life. In fact, I would like to say this, that I have had people come in who were in their 70s for counseling, who after just a few sessions made tremendous changes. So if you have some problems in your life and your attitudes, don't stop here and say it's too late. You have an ounce of willingness and you get the proper counseling. You know, everything can start out afresh for you tomorrow morning, and the rest of your life can be the best part that you've ever lived. Here's problem area number 1 as I have come to see it in the counseling room. That is, a number of years ago, in your case now, the children left home, married, and somehow or another, during these child-rearing years, as husband and wife, you really hadn't put time into your marriage relationship probably the way you should have. Put it real simple, you forgot to keep talking. And as a result, you lost the art of how to talk with each other. What happens when we lose the art of how to talk with each other? Well, we reach the point where we don't understand our partner, and then our partner becomes something like a stranger to us. We really don't know what's going on inside his world, and we're sitting on the outside. The result of this is that it kind of becomes like living with a stranger. Now, you know how to get out of this? A very simple way. And that is, if you will just take an hour, hour and a half each day, with no television, no newspaper, without people coming and going, and just sit down and share life's experiences, how you see things, how you feel about things, and try to express yourself in such a way that your partner can get a picture of what you see. Then let your partner do it, and you spend time listening, and then try to see what the other person sees for the sake of just understanding each other. Now realize this, that your children are busy, and you should not ask them to detract themselves from rearing their own children in order to give extra time. Time indeed, but should not tax them for extra time to make up for loneliness that you could be achieving and fulfilling in your own marriage relationship. Number 2. Here's a very common one where you were probably too busy in life, and right up to the end you were busy to the last day, and then you abruptly stopped. You know, that's very difficult. The body physically has a very difficult time adjusting to it. And emotionally, it's also very difficult for us because suddenly every day was filled with activity and responsibility. You carried it and wore it well. And now you say to your mind, stop, just park, do nothing, idle. It's about like us saying to the lake that's blowing toward the eastern shore, driven with a heavy wind, turn around and reverse your course. It's not going to happen that quickly. The simple solution to it is to retire or wind down more slowly. And if you find that you have made this mistake, maybe you have to somewhat reactivate yourself with some responsibilities and duties, at least just for a temporary time, so that you can wind down more carefully and get yourself equipped and prepared for slowing down and retiring. Number 3. I find that often when people complete their work working years and business years of life. They dream of a faraway place to live when they get old and retire. So they change location and they lose their friendships. Now this can work, and I know that there are many communities where a significant number of people from your community are already living. They're somewhat congregating there, Arizona, California, Florida. But is what I have often experienced with older people and in the advanced years of life is that if they move into a strange place, they have pulled their roots out of the church, out of the community, out of circles of friends, and as life slows down and the circle isn't as wide or as big as it used to be, it becomes more difficult to supplement and fill in, because some of the people that you could find companionship with, you see, they have already slowed down and developed their circles of friendships. One must be very careful when they come to the final years of life that they don't find themselves in a location where they are a stranger to everyone and, as a result, lack the companionship that they would really like to have. I'm not saying you can't make a move, you can't make a new beginning in another place. I'm saying think it through, be careful before you do. Number 4. And this one is failing to establish meaningful things to do in the retirement years. Now, I am in my mid-40s, and I have often said I have so many things planned for old age and retirement which I haven't had time to do in my lifetime, that I'm going to have to live a long time to get it all done, and I'm going to have to get up early in the morning and go until late at night to get it all finished. And a lot of these are just plain hobbies. Fun things that I like, I enjoy, they're simple, they're plain, and somewhere in life I would just like to get some of this in. The last one that I would like to suggest to you is a problem area that often arises where the parents are close to the married children and they become too involved with the married children, too involved in their business and marriage, and they ignore the grandchildren in those homes. May I just make a simple suggestion, and that is that every child needs a grandparent. If they are ever going to look forward to getting old and the excitement of the retiring years, they are going to have to be taught it in childhood from somebody who's in it. I, for instance, had a wonderful grandmother, and as a result of that, I look forward to the years when I can fill the role of, you can call it a senior citizen, somebody who's retired, or somebody who's old, anything you wish, because she gave me such a beautiful picture of old age that you can call me old when I get there if you wish, and I will not be offended in the least, because to me those are some years that are crowned with beauty. To move on, let's go to page 7. And here I would like to emphasize a point. Sickness during these years often takes on the fear of doom and death. The point I would like to emphasize is when you were young and the doctor said, "You're ill. I don't know what you have right now." There was a spirit in you that said, "I'm going to live." When you got into the adult years of life and things went wrong, you still had the attitude, "I'm going to live." It's too bad that when people get along in their 60s and 70s, they live with the dread and the fear when the doctor says, internally you have something, and that something takes on the feelings of death, the end of life. Across the page on page 8, I make this comment, however, did you know that defeated minds often stop good bodies? I have heard doctors say at different times, and even read articles on it, how that they often feel that many people die before their time. Physically, they could have kept going, but the mind stopped, and if there were a way to activate the attitude of the average individual, the lifespan certainly might be different. Turn to page 9. The old and mature years are a ministry of great importance, and across the page on page 10, I single out 3 things. 1, it takes an older person to act as a stabilizer in a community. Hopefully you don't walk as fast as the people in a hurry. And it does the people in a hurry a lot of good to see somebody walk more slowly to the store and get there just the same. The hurry and the worry of life causes many, many physiological problems, including heart attacks. And I believe every community needs a picture of an older person with maturity, who walks more slowly, does things more carefully. It somewhat slows us down. Number 2, the older person can put stability and hope into the church. It's a wonderful picture in a church to see an older person who has simply walked by faith, prayer, and the Word, who carries and reads a well-worn Bible, say to the younger generations, after all these years, this is still the book to live by. Prior to what I'm involved in now, I used to serve some churches, and I was always in home mission work. And as a result, we very seldom had an older person in the church. I miss them. And I always felt that the church missed something by not having them. They were a good, leveling, stabilizing influence on the thinking of people. And every church needs a few of these symbols. Be that symbol, live it cheerfully, live it well, but live your role. You have a place. God keeps you around to keep it occupied. Number 3, give the children a reason to live a full life. Invest yourself in the children of the community and the church. Take time with them. Talk with them. The little souls are looking for somebody who isn't in such a hurry. They are trying to find somebody who has time and who will take time to help them along life's way. And by all means, every time you see a child, take a little time, if nothing more, than to say just hello. If it's a little boy, run your hand through his hair and just rub him on the head and let him know that you noticed and that you love him. What I'm going to do now, and if you turn to page 11, I'm going to show you a little thing that's a pyramid. I'm going to show you how to achieve some of these steps and how to follow through on some of the things we've been talking about. On page 11, you notice that I give you the top part of the pyramid. We are not going to build it top down. We're going to build it bottom up. But before we start building on the bottom, I just wanted you to know what the top of it is. And the top part, or the goal, in the mature years of life is confidence. Confidence. Let me read to you what is on the opposite page. The most beautiful crown and glory a fully developed adult can wear is confidence. You tell it to us by demonstrating how you are willing to take the last steps of your life on what you believed in during your life. We need to see you do so for the assurance of living what you taught us. I can't think of anything more convincing than a teacher who will teach, but also lives and practices what they teach. I can't think of anything more powerful than a Christian who practices what he preaches. There's nothing more beautiful than a pastor who lives what he teaches. There's nothing more impressive, more needed, but more assuring to people than when the older generation lives with that steady confidence everything will turn out. Life has a way of working itself through its problems. That's the type of thing we need to see. And we need to see you demonstrate that to us, the confidence of it. Walk by the Word. Walk in the testimony of the Scriptures. It will all come out. These are wonderful things that children need to see, adults need to see it. And who did God put on earth in order to give us a picture of it? You. Somebody who has lived life, tested life, gone through life, has proven faith. And now with all the confidence in the world, you simply say to all the generations that look to you, that faith life in Jesus works. Turn the page. Let's build the pyramid. On page 13, you notice I put two words on the bottom with a little dash in between: communication and touch. Now this is a series of pyramids that we're dealing with, and if you are acquainted with this series, you will immediately note that touch is where we began with childhood. Communication is where we begin with adulthood. Now in the mature years alone, you have the ability to communicate to us through words and touch all at the same time. You see why I keep calling these the climactic years, where things come together? Children know what touch is. Adults, I hope, know what communication is and what it is to talk. But it's not likely to find many adults that can do both at the same time. It's only in the more mature, experienced person where things have come together in life. In other words, all of childhood and all of adulthood come into one beautiful point of consummation. And that is this combination displays the tenderness of a child and the kindness of a well-seasoned adult, tried and proven through time. Nobody has the touch and the ability to communicate like someone who has gone all through life, tested and proven, and now can give the testimony, these things belong together, and these are some of the great ingredients of life. Let's turn the page and see another part of the pyramid. On page 15, we add two more words, and you notice again, we add on the one side, the left side, we add the word understanding, and now on the right side, we add the word love. So we have communication, talking, to understand, touching, to love. Understanding and love are a combination brought together by virtue of a life well groomed by grace for glory. Isn't that pretty? A person who has been walking with the Lord and still walking with Him is called a saint. That's a special kind of person. And only when we are groomed by the grace of God for His glory? Do these begin to flow together, the understanding and the love? The love is like a gentle rain in the springtime, yet it's as lasting as a diamond, due to the ability to understand all of life's situations and to still be able to sparkle with love. Isn't that beautiful? Understanding is just such a wonderful thing. It's where you are able to enter into the experiences of life and not get all shook. And love is like a diamond that cannot be scarred or scratched, that will still glimmer and glow in the worst of conditions. And only someone who has walked the miles of life in grace and in the glory of God can finally put these all together. Do you hear what I'm saying? You are the only person that can put these all together. I'm in my 40s, been walking with my Lord all my life. I would like to be able to say that I can, but I only know I can't. I need more years of experience before I reach a plateau so beautiful as that. We'll turn the page again. We'll add another set to these, and on page 17 we add acceptance and trust. Once again, across the page, the full-grown person has the ability to accept a child and trust an adult, both at the same time. You know, in the adult years of life, you'll find people who are great with children, or you'll find people who are great with adults. But it's hard to find somebody who's great with both. But when you get to an older person who's gone through all these stages and experiences of life, you find somebody who has the ability to turn a child on and to enter into a trusting relationship with an adult, both of these at the same time. It is a combination of each of these in each step that makes people in their advanced years so great and unequaled. It thrills me to share these things with you because I believe that practically every older person that I have ever met has underestimated and underrated themselves. And I can understand it if a person isn't a Christian, that he gets bogged down with life. But there's something sad when a Christian gets bogged down with it just because the shell is getting a little older and it has a lot of miles on it. There just has to be something so unequal in beauty that only can glisten and glow through the life of an older person. Well advanced in years, well cured, well seasoned. And my, what a testimony they have for us, and how we need that testimony. The whole world needs that testimony. We don't need more discontented people and more anxious people in the world. We don't need a testimony from the older people that everything is about ready to fall apart. We have to put the hope and the courage back into the generations and say, things aren't what they ought to be. But with a little persistence, we can get it there. Now, if you turn the page, on page 19 and 20, we're going to tie in the spiritual side to life. And there we put in faith and hope. Now, faith is what keeps telling us there is something more to life. In other words, we sense in you that you're saying, you know, I haven't really quite arrived either yet. There's more up ahead. That's a wonderful testimony. And hope is what keeps telling us, I know. You know, it takes a young person to be an atheist. And when an older person's an atheist, he's just a total fool. But it takes a saint who's gone through all the battles of life to give us the testimony, God is real. I'm getting so close I can practically see Him. And I know one of the most powerful phrases Paul uses in his writings. It's very convincing when he says, we know, for instance, that when this earthly house, this tabernacle of our body is gone, we have a building in heaven made by God, eternal. That's a beautiful statement. And the older you get, the more you should be able to join the hands together of faith and hope. Now we have one more to put in the pyramid on the part of the spiritual, and on page 21 we put in the word patience. It's a quality of life. Patience is the ability to give some of life's situations time to work themselves out. I hope you think about that. In the younger years of life, we're always solution prone. We have to get it worked out today, now. Why? I have to know how it's going to turn out. But the more one matures and the better he cures in time, the more he with patience gains the ability to give many of life's situations time to work themselves out. You know, people, you have a ministry to the people of God in the church, and you have a message to the world. And that is so many things that we are trying to figure out today are going to work their own way out with or without us, and many of these things we can only make them worse. In patience, it is also the ability to hold the moment in one's hand and value it. So many people go all the way through life and have never lived a day. They were worrying about tomorrow, they were trying to change something in the past, and they never lived the day, and they blundered that so that they had some more regrets. You ought to be able to teach us patience in such a beautiful way that you can show us how to actually put our hand out and hold the moment and to value it. The precious thought. Turn to page 23. Let me summarize it by saying the beauty of age that makes it glow is that all the precious qualities of childhood and the gems of adulthood have an opportunity to glow at once in unison. You see what I have across the page on page 24? I have the statement that says, life is like a rope. One strand of the rope is childhood, the other one's adulthood, and you notice how these braid together. It's so simple, so beautiful, life works its way out. Page 25, what is death? I give you a simple answer in page 26. It is a single step, a small one at that, into the world of life you wished for all through life. Death for the Christian is not a scene of endings and terminations. It's a scene of life. Or it is going home. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen on a church bulletin was placed there by a man whose wife had departed for glory, and after the service that Sunday there was an announcement in the bulletin by him that said, "Thank you to all of you who joined me in celebrating my wife's home going." She went home. I thought it was so beautiful. She still lives. I don't see her in the grave. I see her walking in glory and practically present with us. On page 27, what is eternity? On page 28, it's the life beyond this life. Or, it is one of two oceans into which the streams of life flow. The stream you are in now will determine the ocean you reach. The Bible tells us that there are two ends to life. One is an end of destruction, to be forever separated from God, and the other is the end with God and to forever be with Him. As you turn to page 29, I like to ask you this question. You are so close to home. Do you know Jesus? The reason I ask you that question is that He is the one who will have to introduce you to God. If you know Him, you will meet Him. Will you pray with me? I'm going to pray a simple prayer. I don't know who you are or where you are in relationship with Jesus, but I do know that if you are in right relationship with Him, or if you will get in right relationship with Him, everything I have said will work and will make sense. So together we will pray this simple prayer. Dear Jesus, do you know the person with whom I am visiting today? If so, take care of that one. If not, would you make sure that you become acquainted soon? Amen.